nitrogen balance include protein quality, like complete or incomplete, and amino acid content, and total calorie intake. Now, high-quality animal proteins like eggs and dairy products are best because of their amino acid content and their high digestibility. That is, they are easy to digest and absorb. As I mentioned earlier, plant proteins have a lower digestibility, meaning that they are harder to digest and absorb and are low in some of the essential amino acids. In fact, a common recommendation for vegetarians is to increase protein intake by about 10% just to account for this. And you should now understand that the amount of protein in your diet can make a difference to overall body composition and health. But protein needs can change based upon how much and what type of exercise you do. So, how does exercise affect our protein needs? Well, endurance and resistance exercise can use or burn a lot of calories. This fact alone would require more protein in your diet. But exercise also puts a lot of strain on your body's protein stores. These protein stores are known as the amino acid pool. And one study measured nitrogen balance in young and middle-aged distance runners. Now, these runners were randomly assigned to a low, moderate, or high protein intake from egg and milk proteins for 10 days. And nitrogen balance was measured in the final 5 days of each of the low, moderate, and high protein diets. And whether the athletes were young or middle-aged, a low-protein diet made all the runners on that diet fall into a negative nitrogen balance. The moderate protein intake, which was just above the current recommended dose of 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or 0.36 grams per pound of body weight, where they made about half the runners go into a positive nitrogen balance. But the other half remained in a negative nitrogen state. But when a high-protein diet was given, the majority of runners were in a positive nitrogen balance. So in runners, regardless of age, research shows that protein intake that is higher than current recommendations was best, in this study, to promote an environment that stops muscle wasting. In this study, the high-protein diet was 1.21 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or 0.6 grams per pound. If you weigh 145 pounds, or 66 kilograms, this would be about 80 grams of protein per day. But if you weigh 185 pounds, or 84 kilograms, this would be about 100 grams of protein per day. Now, just as a reminder, you simply divide your body weight in pounds by 2.2 to get your weight in kilograms. But does the same thing happen if you lift weights instead of run? Well, the short answer is yes. Research used men who were new to lifting weights and sedentary men. And they ate a low-protein diet that was actually just above what is currently recommended at 0.86 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, or a moderate protein diet at 1.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, or a high-protein diet at 2.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. And they did this for 13 days each. And they found that in men who did not exercise, the low, moderate, and high-protein diets all led to a positive nitrogen balance. But in men who lifted weights, only the moderate and high-protein diets led to a positive nitrogen balance. So once again, we see that for people who choose to exercise, which I hope is all of you, a higher intake of protein is needed to give yourself the best possible chance to maintain or increase your muscle mass. It's important to tell you, though, that there were no differences in protein synthesis between the moderate 1.4 grams of protein and the high 2.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight groups. So this tells us that around 1.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or 0.64 grams of protein per pound of body weight, may be optimal for promoting protein synthesis. So again, if you weigh 145 pounds or 66 kilograms, this would be about 92 grams of protein. And if you weigh 185 pounds or 84 kilograms, this would be about 118 grams of protein per day. You could eat 90 grams in a typical day if you ate 2 large eggs at breakfast, 1 cup of Greek yogurt at lunch, and a handful of almonds as a midday snack, and a 6-ounce chicken breast at dinner. The takeaway here is that protein breakdown increases when you exercise hard, and protein intake at an optimal level is required to maintain or improve muscle mass. Ultimately, you have the best chance at maintaining or improving muscle mass by choosing a diet with high rather than adequate protein levels. Now, you can probably tell that protein is good for your muscles, but what does this do to your metabolism and energy balance? Well, first, it's important to know that there are 3 major components of total daily energy expenditure. These include resting metabolic rate, the thermic effect of activity, and the thermic effect of food. And the largest percent of total daily energy expenditure belongs to our resting metabolic rate, close to 75%. And you may also remember that your metabolism tends to slow as you age. Now, the overall decrease in metabolism is only about 1 to 3% during the entire aging process, which really isn't that much. As we age, we lose about 5% of our muscle mass every 10 years. So from age 40 to age 80, you could lose as much as 20% of your muscle mass, which would lower your overall calorie burn and metabolism. But we can do something about it. For example, if your resting metabolism is 1,800 calories per day, then the metabolic decrease over time could be somewhere around 20 to 60 calories in total. And that's pretty easy to offset with just a few simple nutrition or exercise strategies. One of which just might be eating more protein. If you are used to eating minimal protein, as many adults do, then even doubling your intake from what is currently recommended is likely a great thing to try. So you would simply be sure to have a good protein source at each meal to base the rest of your meal around. Now, how does eating more protein help us to adjust to a slowing metabolism? Well, an interesting fact about the macronutrients that we eat, which are protein, carbohydrates, and fat, is that they all have what is called a coefficient of digestibility. What this means is that if you ate a food that was 100% carbohydrate, you would digest about 97% of that food. However, if it was all fat, you would digest about 95% of that food. But if you ate 100% protein, you would only digest about 92% of that food. Your body digests a certain percentage of those 3 macronutrients, and protein is the least digested compared to carbohydrate and fat. And that's because your body cannot oxidize or burn the nitrogen in protein sources of food. In essence, your body works hard to digest and absorb protein. And this is probably why eating protein gives you the largest increase in metabolism when eating it. This is called the thermic effect of food. A number of research studies have been designed to measure metabolism after a meal containing protein versus fat versus carbohydrate. And the majority of these indicate that the greatest increase in metabolism comes after eating protein. So by eating protein, you begin to increase your metabolism and your caloric burn. Now, outside of the increase in metabolism we get from eating protein, it also makes us feel full or satiated after eating it. Here the research is also clear. Low protein intake is linked to increased feelings of hunger and desire to eat again, while increased protein intake is linked to decreased feelings of hunger and less desire to eat again. And even without exercise, our research is showing that adding protein to the diet of overweight but otherwise healthy people can improve body composition. For example, in overweight and obese adults, nutrition scientists demonstrated that a protein supplement providing 56 grams per day of whey protein with no other dietary alterations resulted in significantly lower body fat mass by 5 pounds or 2.3 kilograms over 23 weeks of doing this. This was compared to a carbohydrate supplement of equal calories given to another test group. So you can see that eating more protein may be the best nutritional strategy to manage body composition, given its influence on metabolism, satiety, and even maintenance of muscle mass. And the impact of a high-protein diet when combined with an exercise program can provide even better results for improving metabolism and body composition. In fact, I collaborated on a research project with lead investigator Dr. Paul Arciero from Skidmore College and found that a diet high in protein, which is about 40%, combined with exercise training that included both resistance training and high-intensity interval training, was optimal for reducing both body weight and body fat in obese men and women between 40 and 60 years old. This protein and exercise combination also helped to maintain or even improve muscle mass. And in 2014, we teamed up to see what sort of exercise was best with a higher protein diet. Our results were really interesting. We found that the greatest improvements in body composition of middle-aged, overweight, and/or obese men and women when they ate a high-protein diet and included high-quality variety of exercise in their weekly schedules. They completed 4 days of exercise per week, 1 day of weight training, 1 day of sprint interval training,